So, Jenny, the first in-person meeting between these two leaders, a lot of concern about South Korea's new president, that he could be ambushed like we saw with at least two other leaders in the Oval Office. Clearly, that did not happen, and Trump did most of the talking. What stood out to you watching that?
I think in terms of optics, it was a very good meeting and a diplomatic win for Lee Jae-myung. There was a lot of anxiety going into this of what that Oval Office meeting was going to look like. And as I mentioned before, because of the exchanges that went on early this morning, that was also, I think, predicated by a statement that Lee Jae-myung made last night, talking about how the decision to change the mission of the U.S. forces on the Korean Peninsula was not an easy one to make. So I think there has been already a little bit of strong arm, hardball negotiating tactics going on to try and see what they can extract from this meeting. Certainly it's not done yet, it might be just wrapping up now in terms of the luncheon, and we'll see what actually came out of it once the cameras were off.
Before I get to the issue of trade and tariffs, I got to ask you about what Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, and our reporter Kate Fisher also addressed it. In big caps, he says, "What is going on in South Korea? Seems like a purge or revolution. We can't have that and do business there." What is he talking about, and what is his objective, Jenny, by injecting himself once again into the internal affairs of another country?
Yeah, I mean, it's very problematic. So he's referring to some raids that have been done of a number of different churches that have been associated with the Yoon Suk Yeol administration, the former administration, as well as one raid that went on one of the military bases that was actually geared towards the South Korean Air Force, which is co-located in a building on Camp Humphreys in the U.S. military base there. So it does bring up some questions about whether the diplomatic protocols were breached, but there was legal standing for and legal backing for those raids as part of the prosecution investigation into former President Yoon Suk Yeol. But again, I think, bringing it up now, there's a couple of different things at play, and certainly we've heard from other representatives of MAGA that really do side with former President Yoon, who have been very critical of Lee Jae-myung, and there's a lot of cooperation that's being built between MAGA in the U.S. and the party that is now supporting Yoon, this Yoon Again party in South Korea.
Well, let me move on. I got to get to trade and tariffs. This is a huge flashpoint between these two countries. Things are not bad as they were a few months ago. What are your expectations following that last-minute deal?
I think it's pretty positive. I think today we were looking for what is the clarification on the $350 billion of investment that the South Koreans will give to the U.S. Is there actual new investments in there from the various different companies, or does this just include previously committed investments, such as in Texas and in Indiana? There's a big push, of course, for cooperative shipbuilding and for South Korean investment in U.S. shipyards in order to modernize them, in order to help train more shipbuilders in the United States and make American shipbuilding more competitive again. So I think all of that, the lead up to it has been very positive. And we would expect some relatively positive outcomes from that as well.
And finally, Jenny, Donald Trump's comments about North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, very positive that they get along, they like each other, and he hopes to perhaps meet Kim Jong-un again. How do you think that played out in the minds of President Lee?
Well, I think that's what he wanted to hear. Both presidents now are very pro-diplomacy with North Korea. I think the bigger question is what is that diplomacy? What is the goal of that diplomacy? And I know the South Koreans really want to keep denuclearization front and center. And the North Koreans have basically said they're not interested in denuclearization. So it really does put a dilemma for Trump as to if he wants to start diplomacy, what is the purpose, what is going to be the goal and the center of that diplomacy?
Jenny Town, apparently I said your name wrong. My apologies. Okay. Jenny Town, thank you very much.